All right. This is Marcus back with the Horse Strain podcast. And tonight we're talking about a movie that I really dug. I'm excited to finally talk about it. It came out last week, I believe. Yeah, last week on Blu-ray and 4K. And that's the Bad Robot production of Overlord from director Julie Avery, I believe. I think that's how you say his name. Julie Avery. And producer JJ Abrams. Not only is this a cool movie that I wanted to talk about, but we also have a special guest in someone who I've grown up with and learned a lot from films with, and that's my brother Arsenio.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Arsenio is the operator of another podcast known as The Sessions, which you can check out on the Apple's podcast, right?
Yeah, Apple or Podomatic.
Podomatic, okay. And it's called The Sessions. The Sessions podcast.
Sessions. It's on Instagram as well.
All right.
The Sessions podcast.
And with his podcast, he talks a lot about the world, about what's going on in society. And it's a really cool podcast. Give it a look. I've been on it a few times, but he has a pretty solid library there for you to browse through. And that's The Sessions podcast. But, we got into Overlord tonight. Your first time watching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
My second time seeing it. And before we dive into Overlord, I think a movie genre that my brother's well versed in as well as I am is definitely the war movie genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I think this movie's a strong addition. Like maybe the first half, obviously, a strong addition to like World War II films or war films in general. But what are your thoughts on the war movie genre? Maybe like dive back. What was the one that really stands out to you, or that? Because I think through the years, me and you have we've stayed up with a lot of the war films that come out. Whether it be We Were Soldiers, Mel Gibson, Black Hawk Down from Ridley Scott.
Saving Private Ryan was a big one for me. Just because of the whole situation. I always remember that everyone talked about Grandpa going to watch it and like crying, which no one ever saw our Grandpa cry. It's just like, and then you hear all this story. That really affected the veterans, so that one always stands out to me.
I mean, that one was a real... I mean, how can you talk about war movies and not talk about Saving Private Ryan? Because prior to that, I don't think we hadn't seen anything of that level of intensity or...
From the get-go, right from the beginning, which this one really caught me in the same way, because the opening scene was just brutal, right from the get-go. I thought I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, which was cool. I didn't have any expectation or anything, but I was sitting there drawing, and it's like that scene, like, all right, I gotta put the sketch pad down for a second and watch this, because that was intense.
Yeah. And that's good, because I didn't know how much you knew about Overlord. It's definitely one of those movies that the less you know about it, the better. And it's definitely a movie that will be rediscovered on home media because it didn't do anything at the box office. No one saw it. And maybe it's tough. How do you market a film like this? But that's a good perspective to have, and that's why I asked, like, up until this movie, where I think it's the first time we're seeing such a genre mashup of a real time in history with the horror / sci-fi genre. Leading up to this, though, how did you feel about the military? I mean, in general, most of the movies you like, the war films that come out, or was it becoming stale where then you walk into this, you're like, oh, here's another war movie, Overlord, and then...
I've always been intrigued by war movies, so, I mean, unless they're terribly done, like the... Wind Talkers.
I knew you were going to... Yeah. Nicolas Cage and John Woo epic.
Like, I don't... That one just threw me off. I was like, man... And because, I have strong affiliation towards Native American culture, like, it just felt like, wow, you could have done something so much better with that subject. But, yeah, I mean, I like the ones that Clint Eastwood did. Mm-hmm. Flags of Our Fathers was...
Oh, that he... Letters to Iwo Jima was the other one.
Letters to Iwo Jima, I'm not sure if I ever saw the full thing.
It's the opposite for me. I saw Letters of Iwo Jima, but I still have never watched Flag of Our Fathers. Yeah. But Letters of Iwo Jima is a hell of a film. That's visceral.
The Flags of Our Fathers was pretty damn good. You know, it took another take on the Native American story as well. So
I guess that's a fair thing to say. That it's really bad if you mess up a war film.
It is.
Because I mean, in general, you have a lot of war films, and a lot of them do deal with real people who existed. So it's like there's a lot for them to pull from the stories, I guess. You know, where it's like whether it's inspirational or what have you, there's something that will connect to us on a visceral level because, well, that's real. You know, it's real, and that's crazy that shit happened, as opposed to.
Well, people don't forget. Like, people tend to forget in this culture because there's so much safety, but we are a culture of war. Mm-hmm. Any way you look at it, our whole history has been one of war. So it's something that,
whether it's subconscious or not,
it strikes the primal nature.
The primal nature. Yeah.
So it's like you're just intrigued by war. I mean, yeah, I'm glad I could watch it on a film rather than be there, because I just can't imagine. Like, we always like to look at it and be like, well, I would act one way or another, but you don't know until you're
in any movie situation.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you watch it with guys who have actually been in the shit.
Yeah.
You know, like done the things that they do over there. And but yeah, this one was definitely a fun one to get away from the serious. I mean, it was pretty intense.
It opens up. It has a strong opening.
But of course, it's like, you know, Nazi zombies.
Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, one of the strongest films is Saving Private Ryan. That changed up cinema. Because prior to that, war films, I think the darkest one you may have ever saw was Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now, yeah.
Which is a strong, you know, that's a great film. That's another film.
Mr. Molino's Class.
Mr. Molino's Class. And that was his class. It was a great, you know, I guess would you call him a cutting edge teacher? But he definitely taught from a different perspective than other teachers. But he showed us, it was Apocalypse Now, right? And then, I don't know if you remember, but he did show a handful of other movies, which was what I was trying to get at, is that in the 70s, 60s, 50s, war films were presented as like, we were such clean-cut characters in those films. Mm-hmm. If you even look at the uniforms, whether it's a John Wayne movie or whatever, uniform is starched, it's like, it's perfect. Do these guys even see war? But then when, you know, Apocalypse Now notwithstanding, but when Saving Private Ryan came out, that put you in the soldiers. There you go, the soldier shoes. That opening scene. So that changed the landscape of war films, and I think war films saw a resurgence. And now, we've had a lot of great movies, military-based films that, even though it's over the top, I even like 13 Hours with Michael Bay. You know, there's dramatic flourishes in that film, but all in all, there's always something I find interesting in war films. With Jim from The Office. That one. Yeah. You know, he has the dramatic Transformers type shots, you know. But still, the story is, you know, is true and it's crazy. And it's like, I think that's what always... I like war movies because it shows what, you know... on one hand, the ugliness humans are capable of, but then in those situations of survival or what you can withstand, it's like, it's inspiring, but albeit, you know, dark film genre.
So you knew this was a war film?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I was curious with audiences, you know, because I come from, like, I love movies. So especially with horror films where I knew, I mean, it was a mystery project from JJ Abrams. No one knew what Overlord. That's kind of like his MO. You know, that's the thing. This is a Bad Robot production. Who directed it? His name's Jules Avery or Julie Avery. I always get his first name mixed up, but it's a guy who... it's his second film. Oh. His other movie's called... Son of a Gun, I think it might be. Gangster type film with Ewan McGregor, which is supposed to be really phenomenal. I haven't seen it. But this project was shrouded in mystery, and no one really knew what it was. They just knew it was like a JJ Abrams horror sci-fi type film. People thought that this was going to be a Cloverfield movie, because, you know, JJ Abrams and Bad Robot's involved with all that. So there was that love. As a film fan, that's what I grabbed. I'm like, I need to know everything about this. So I knew when when the marketing material started coming out, I knew just from reading into it that it was a war film mashup with a horror film. Nazi zombies, have you? But that's why I was curious because in the marketing, I don't think there's a supernatural element to it, but the trailer is showcased as a war film.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was going to be my other question is, I love genre mashups, and this is something you don't see that often. You walking in, you kind of were just taken aback by the war film part of it. You're just like, holy shit!
Well, I knew, like, going into it, I just thought it was a horror movie. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any idea. Like, you showed me a ton of horror movies, so I was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah.
But when I saw that was war right away, or World War II, it caught my attention. I was like, oh, this is already... Well, first thing I thought was Call of Duty, the Nazi zombies. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, oh, they're going to do Nazi zombies, which... It's a cool concept. You've never seen that in film.
Exactly.
So.
And that, I guess the idea of a genre mashup is something you don't see in cinema that often. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the most obvious example from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
Starts out as a bank heist film. Okay, we got ourselves, a Tarantino type-esque film with Robert Rodriguez directing from Desperado. You don't really know where it's going, but then out of nowhere, vampires. And that's why I was excited for this movie. I was like, wow, this is a genre mashup film from JJ Abrams. That's me as a fan. So that's why it's interesting. I think a lot of people maybe in the marketing didn't know what to fucking expect from the movie, which is always tough to market films like this. No. Even like Grindhouse, where that, again, Robert Rodriguez and Tarantino. For a fan like me, yes, I want to see it, but to the average film goer, I don't know. And that's why I
said it hasn't done well in the box office.
This one, Overlord? No, it didn't make a dent at all. It kind of came.
Which is that's the thing though with art. Like when you got artists obviously making fun passion projects, like you can't worry about box office, which is unfortunate because it's a business. You make money. But for artists, it's like for true fans, you're gonna love it. Like people are gonna love it eventually. Mm-hmm. That's cult classic type material.
And that's what I would say this is. I think it's definitely one that's gonna be. I keep recommending it to everyone. Like watch Overlord.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's especially if you don't know a damn thing going in, because even me, when I knew it was a World War II film, I didn't know it was gonna open up that way though. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is just a damn good war film already. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're telling me there's gonna be demons and monsters later, but I thought just that it's so well done that you kind of just, I won't say forget that it's a horror film. You get lost in the filmmaking. That's why I think this is a strong piece. I'll just come out and say, I think this is a great film. And that was basically the first things I wanted to open up with, is just the fact, like, war films, I think, more than anyone else I really know, and then just the fact that it's a genre mashup film. With those facts now that we have going in, how did you feel about Overlord? What are your first impressions of it, your first time watching it and all that?
Like I said, it grabbed me right away. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was cool. I thought the acting kind of was silly to me at points, but I get that with horror films. Like
they're filling the tropes of character types and all that.
And I think just with audiences in general, too, you gotta give them a break. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's like, I always, especially with, I think that's where it was maybe a little bit of a struggle with being a war film. It's like they can't be goofing around and stuff when they're in enemy territory, like.
Well, just the fact you mentioned the volume of their voices.
Yeah, like they
would be whispering.
Yeah, exactly. You're not gonna be yelling and making jokes in some
stranger's
German town, But other than that, I mean, it went through good, and I got caught up in the story.
Yeah.
It definitely, even though my first thought was like, oh, Nazi zombies, it's not even that really. Yeah. It's a good story that I like when you can think that it's something that could have happened. Mm-hmm. Especially in war and stuff, and those are things that, back then they're everywhere, in every war, they're doing experiments on people, which is what a premise of the movie is. It's
almost like an urban legend that comes with wars and whatnot. What's going on behind the scenes?
It's going down underground, even.
Or even take it in a step further. What's this war trying to keep us distracted? What else is going on behind the scenes and shit? But There's that urban, that little mystique, and I think that World War II's always gone that heavily though, right? With Hitler involved with the occult and all that.
Yeah, they were definitely doing weird experiments on people.
Yeah. So it definitely captures that spirit of
Yeah, I liked it, and I mean overall, it was good. Character development was cheesy, but other than that, I enjoyed it.
Well, speaking of the actors, I didn't want to say anything during the movie. Did you recognize any of the actors, or was there anyone who... pretty much all unknown, right?
Yeah. Maybe the sergeant who took... Oh, well, the sergeant.
Oh, yeah, Bokeem Woodbine, which I thought was a cool touch. Yeah. Almost like a very hip...
From Predator.
Yeah. He's good. That was cool. He must be friends with JJ Abrams to get that role in there.
That was a good cameo.
Nice touch. Yeah. So the bomb expert guy, the white guy, where the first colonel or whatever says whatever he says, act like it's me talking. Right?
Yeah, him.
So him throughout the movie, his name is Wyatt Russell. He's Kurt Russell's son.
Oh.
And so I've been bringing this up to people who have seen the film. To me, I was kind of really taken aback by the performance because it's a cool. I feel I totally agree on the character development in the film. I think the only character that really gets any development is the African American soldier.
Yeah.
I forget Jovan Adepo, I think his name is. He was also in Fences. Denzel Washington. He played one of Denzel's sons. He gets a lot of the character, but the character development. But Wyatt, I like his performance, and it almost gives Overlord this street horror cred, because I just hear his performance reminds me of his dad in The Thing, where it's this one character who kind of has it all together. Well, not all together, but he knows the situation. He knows what's going on, as far as this is how we're gonna have to react or deal with this and that. And his son Wyatt just brings that same energy to Overlord. Which I just found interesting. And the fact that it didn't do well at the box office, and John Carpenter's The Thing didn't do well at the box office, I don't know, it just gives this movie just a really cool... This movie has a good, almost...
There's going to be a cool history to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool history. That's why I feel like we're talking about a movie that one day will be a cool classic type status film.
I think it'll happen pretty quick with I'm sure the digital... uploads and the Blu-ray sales is gonna change it, because like you said, once people see it and know it, they're gonna like it.
And I think we touched on something though, which is really what I wanted, why I find this film interesting, is that's why when this movie came out, I told people, if you're a horror fan, this is the type of movie you gotta go out and pay to see, because it really is kind of its own original concept. You've never seen this type of movie in cinemas before, a full-fledged World War II movie match. You've seen it in smaller, they got the Nazi zombie, or not, there is some movies that are direct-to-DVD that deal with zombies in World War II and all that. But you're not in something on this level with JJ Abrams. And so it's kind of your original concept horror film with somewhat of a budget, had a pretty solid budget. If it doesn't do well, that's why studios are not going to greenlight creative ideas like that. And so that's where it's I guess that's the interesting.
But what's cool now is you got things like Netflix. Netflix can give big studio budgets now.
Frontiers changing.
Yeah, even thinking the Oscars this year, how many Netflix films were nominated?
Scorsese's is advertising.
Yeah, now he's doing
Scorsese's doing a Netflix film.
So I think that's gonna open new doors for the horror genre and just any genre. You can make a good film that people can bid on, or can make a big stir about, like Bird Box. So yeah, I think as movie filmmakers gotta get away from the idea of box office. Studios run that. They're gonna stick to their formula.
Their blueprint, their formulas, The landscape has changed for movies. But that's why still, I love seeing, I think right now we're entering even though maybe not all of them are returning big box office returns, I think we're going into a real golden age of horror right now. Because last year, this was amongst other releases, you know, Halloween, Suspiria.
This came out last year?
It came out last year in November. And
I'm just watching it.
Yeah, and then even, you know, other releases like last year that kind of didn't get any steam box office wise. Upgrade, that's another one you gotta watch. Really, if anyone, that's another one. Great movie. Oh, these are all in my top 10. But we're in this golden age right now where like movies that are coming out in theaters that are horror based or even streaming or you know, Netflix original, Shudder original, they're strong material. You know, it's really strong material. And just this one, Overlord. Yeah, I liked it. I was very happy with this film. I loved just the fact that it's a Bad Robots production. JJ Abrams involved. You got this, you know, I was excited to hear that Wyatt Russell was in it. Because I've seen, he's only had small roles in other films. He was like one of the jock villain in 22 Jump Street that Channing Tatum becomes friends with. He shows up here and there in films, but this is really like his first, like, where he's not playing a comedic role either. Playing a serious role. And I think he knocked it out of the park. I'm curious to see what else he does with his career. And character development was lacking for sure, but it's like it's following the tropes of a horror film. Mm-hmm. So I dug everything. It was following that kind of grindhousey. You know, we have the badass character. We have like the intelligent character who's sensitive. It's following all those tropes.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, just it wasn't like a mega blockbuster budget. You could tell their budget went to the first opening scene and then the last act of the film.
Yeah.
But still, it all has a nice flow to it. I like that it opens up strong, and then we just kind of have this quiet, thrilling of them just hiding out, you know, where you get a little bit of character development, but then it just goes into the all assault, the ending. I love it. Just had a feel of those 70s, 80s, you know, epic horror films.
I will say, like, in that when you first don't know what's going on and, like, he goes into the room they just hear the breathing coming out of the room of the ant. I feel like there's another movie there, too, where you can make it into a real horror film. Like, you have this crazy war movie, but then it's like, that's not even the scariest part they're gonna face. They're just gonna face some creepy ass shit in the house, you know, like.
I thought that too when I first.
Yeah, I really thought it was gonna turn into what's the one that came out, the ghost people. I'm blanking right now.
Oh yeah, I can't remember that one.
The one from the 70s, the Ghost Investigators, the movies that they come out with, the one with the oh man, I'm blanking.
We've had a few bowls on that.
The one you really like. It's been like a
Conjuring.
Oh,
okay, yeah,
Conjuring. Yeah, like that kind of horror film.
Mm-hmm.
It would just totally flip the whole movie on end if you start with a war film.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, it turned into something completely different than what I was expecting.
Yeah, I did get that. I did like the concept, and that's what I thought it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be like in a bunker per se, but I was just like, man, I wonder if they're going into this town where all sorts of crazy shit is going on. Just a town that's there.
Good. They caught a lot of different vibes.
But that's where the budget comes. Yeah, but that's where the budget comes in. You could tell, like, if it was a full out huge budget, then who knows how that story would play out. But it's very that's what I like about it. It's very constrained. I mean, really, they're in that bulk of the movie is in that house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why movies that are like that are very self-contained but genre-specific. Tarantino loves that, you know, Reservoir Dogs and all that. The movie just had just a great vibe to it. Like, there was a lot of, like, inspiration from, obviously, other horror films and war films. But just had a really... And if you're a horror fan, this is definitely the type of movie you want to watch. You want to get lost in this story. And I love that there was actual practical effects, which is something you rarely see in horror films now. It's usually CGI, which this movie definitely has CGI. But I love seeing the use of practical effects, and that's the last half or the last act of the film. You know, they're in this bunker, and it's just a house of horrors coming alive, and it just has a fun, thrilling, and realness to it. It just felt very old school. The movie has an old school feel to it for horror fans. So I'm curious to see what this guy does next. I am going to see his other film, Son of a Gun, which is kind of like a dark, gritty crime film. But in general, Bad Robot's killing it right now. I mean, you've seen most of the Bad Robot productions, I think. They reinvigorated the Star Trek franchise, even though that's kind of petered off.
I saw the second one, I think.
For Star Trek?
How many are there now?
There's 3.
There's 3?
But they reinvigorated the Mission Impossible franchise ever since they JJ Abrams directed Part 3, and that franchise has gone on to craziness. They did the Cloverfield films, Super 8. So this is part of it. It's not a huge library of films, but this is part of their library now, and yeah, it's just a cool vibe that you get from a studio like that. I want to see Bad Robot come back in a big way, kind of like how Blumhouse is killing it right now. Blumhouse did Get Out and then Halloween, and it's just one massive hit after another.
You got Us. When's Us come out?
Us is the end of this month. Yeah, Jordan Peele.
Yeah, that looks good.
You saw Get Out. You liked Get Out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, Us looks... That's what I like about certain movie trailers. I like when they can, like... They show a lot in that trailer. I still don't know what the hell the movie's going to be about. Yeah. You know, obviously I get the whole...
They give you the concept.
The concept's there. It's just like, where's it going to go? I have no idea, because the scenes kind of don't correlate with one another. You see house, you see beach, you see... It's just...
I think at this point everyone saw Get Out, so you know it's going to be something you're not really expecting, just the way that he...
Well, that's a big... It's kind of like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, hopefully he lives up to it, because otherwise...
He has set a huge precedence with that first film, and not only does he have Us coming out this year, his second film, but he's headlining the new Twilight Zone TV series. Oh. He's the one who's narrating like Rod Serling did on the original. And I think he has a stake in it. He's either producing it or writing it. I forget what it is, the details of it. But he's hosting it.
Because they did one dealing with Forrest Whitaker, or was that Outer Limits?
I remember that. I can't remember if it was Twilight Zone or Outer Limits, but... Was it Forrest Whitaker? It was Forrest.
I feel like it was.
Yeah, this is just... He has a big stake. His hands are involved creatively. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's daunting for a filmmaker, especially coming from the horror genre, when you put out one solid film to follow it up.
Yeah. James
Wan has done that quite well, actually. I'm always impressed with James Wan. There's not many filmmakers. He would be falling in that line, like, you know, M. Night Shyamalan had that clout.
What was his first film?
For
James Wan?
Saw.
Oh, Saw.
Saw was his first film. And then after that, he did Insidious. And then... no. Saw. Then he did Death Sentence, which is a totally underrated film with Kevin Bacon. That's a hell of a movie. I always tell people to watch that one. And then he did Dead Silence with the doll. That one is a super underrated horror film, which is like his ode, throwback to the Universal horror films. And it is a Universal, I think, produced film.
I don't know if I saw that one.
But there are very few directors, so that's why it's a big deal. I'm excited for Us. I think it is going to be good. I kind of have no doubt that it would be a bad film.
I was listening to your M. Night Shyamalan podcast.
Yeah.
You've had a love-hate relationship with that director.
Yeah, I'm very accepting of films and directors, but that guy really pushed me. So, but that's like I said, it'll be interesting to see how Jordan Peele. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. You got Us. I don't know how big were you on the Pet Sematary.
Looks cool. Looks fun. Yeah, I remember the old one. It's been a long time since I watched it. I think I was probably still in high school last time I watched it. So.
But that was one of those strong horror films. Even as a kid, we heard that was one that was spoken with reverence. Like Pet Sematary is scary and creepy, and it has a creepy vibe to it. But yeah, there's even now in the next few months, there's a lot of great indie horror films coming out. This week we got Greta from Neil Jordan, who directed the obvious one everyone knows, Interview with the Vampire. But that one's going to be cool. Kind of like a stalker thriller this week. And then did you see the trailer for another Blumhouse one called Mama? Or Ma? Mm-hmm. It's with, what's her name? Octavia Spencer. You'll have to see that trailer. But that one looks cool. Blumhouse looks like they're they're getting interesting with their horror films where the basic concept is, you know, Midwest town, these underage white kids, and they want to party or whatnot, and they just happen to ask this African-American lady, and she's like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll get you guys your beer, and, you know, why don't you guys come to my place? You guys can party there. And she starts letting them party at her house, but then slowly and slowly over the course, who knows how long the movie takes place over, but they start to notice there's weird things about her, and she's a total complete psycho. So that's gonna be, that looks like a cool one. But yeah, it's a, I think, right, starting with last year and keep watching the horror movies, because Overlord's one that came out in theaters, and I mean, it's always nice to see movies on streaming where you're just like, oof, that was cool. Let me recommend that one to people. It seems it's very rare when it happens in theaters with horror films. There's such a wide variety to watch on streaming, which is so cool. There's so much original content on these services. I keep recommending people Shudder. Get on Shudder. That's like the best horror. It's all horror movies on Shudder, and they got a little bit from every decade. Well, you don't. Hopefully now we'll see a lot more in theaters where it's like, oh yeah, go see that movie. But Overlord, man, that was the one where it's like, it's gonna find good life on home video, but it's one of those when I'll be like, why didn't people see it in theaters? Kind of like Shawshank Redemption when that came out. It didn't do nothing. You know, it didn't even, it got nominated and stuff, but nothing. Just the little quiet one in the corner. Yeah. And to this day, someone said like, here were the movies. This was the movie that won Best Picture that year, and these were the other movies that were nominated. And when you look back, you're like, yeah, I definitely watched Shawshank more than any of those other movies. But yeah, Overlord.
Sometimes it's a little ahead of its time.
That's what it is, ahead of its time.
Because it is the first. I mean, it definitely took on a big risk there. You know, combining a war film with a horror film. Like, there's a lot that can go wrong with that. Which I'm sure there have been straight to DVD movies that have tried to do that. It's like, you got to do it right. So I think they overall did it really well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reverence for war films in this one, and then a reverence for just horror films in general. Like, there's a respect for how horror movies play out, and there's a respect, like, you do a war movie, you do it fucking right. You know? And I will say that movie's worth seeing for that opening scene is a hell of a scene. Yeah. You know, the plane getting shot down over enemy lines, and you got one take with Saving Private Ryan. We're on the beach, and other movies do their own point of view perspectives, but this one's in the damn plane. And I'm trying to think, have I ever seen a war film with a budget that showed that? Have we ever seen a scene like that in a war film? Where you have all the soldiers in there and the plane gets shot down and they're jumping for survival? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any war film.
I feel like they're Black Hawk Down.
Helicopters,
scenes like that, I guess.
In the cityscape. Yeah. But like a scene devoted to that, I don't think I have.
You know, I was thinking of one that did feel like, and we mentioned it earlier, but it did feel like a horror/war film. It was Apocalypse Now. Yeah. Well, I mean, Apocalypse Now is like, because that's one of my favorite films of all time. I love Apocalypse Now. And I almost say, like, it takes the war film and it has that war movie feel maybe in the first few segments, but it just steadily goes into this landscape of mythic heaven and hell, you know? There are beautiful shots of jungle, but then when the sun goes down, it's juxtaposed with just like when they're at that bridge and they're shooting things in the air. There's literally two sides fighting, you know, and just people are just tripping out underneath the lights and all that. There's just a crazy mythic quality to it all. Like when that boat arrives to Marlon Brando's compound, it's just a steady take that lasts a while as the boat gets closer, and there's that beat of the soundtrack. I think, it's just, yeah. See, that was powerful, mythic stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could see the horror imagery, even the fantasy. I felt at unease at that whole movie. You know, you felt the impending doom coming. Like, what the fuck are they getting themselves into? You know, and Charlie Sheen, or Martin Sheen, his character is just like thrown into this shit.
Yeah.
Or he, like the beginning scene, you know, where he's on the bed just going through hell.
He's already dealing with his demons in his head.
And then he has to be
go back,
shit.
Throw him back into the shit.
Which is, and I'm sure they got inspired in this movie because of that, or from that film, because, like you were talking about, the music really like set the mood in that film. It did in that beginning scene. The music is strong in this film, yeah. Especially in that beginning scene, they used the music to really get you into that scene. It wasn't just loud effects. Like I remember thinking about that track. I was like, damn, I gotta say something about the track in the beginning because
it's a strong score. I'll give you that. It is. Throughout the whole film, it has that. It stands out. You're right.
That's so important to a good film. Like sound. Like I never even thought about it really until I started trying to make films. You know, like all the stuff that we've done and we've done on my own, editing through film. It's like you understand how important the sound is to like
take the piss out of the movie.
You could destroy a movie quick. You can mess up on a scene visually and still get away with a good film. Yeah. But if you mess up with their sound, people are gonna check out. They're gonna say no.
You can make up for a movie that has no story or script with just imagery and sound if it's done right. Yeah, that's true. The score is, and I usually listen out for soundtracks, but this one, the movie's so thrilling and the music accompanies it so well that I didn't even think about it. Yeah, that's cool. Now it threw me off. What was what were we saying? Damn it. That was a good point, but no. We're talking about Apocalypse Now. The sense of impending doom. There's no happiness in that movie. No. Which is fair. That's a fair thing to do to the audience because I don't think there was anything happy in war. And even in the movie, even in Apocalypse Now, there's moments of like levity where maybe it's a deep sigh of breath. I'm laughing. Like I always think of that scene where the tiger comes out and scares Chef or whatever, and he starts freaking out, and you're kind of laughing. They're all laughing at it, and then he just breaks down into crying. You have this scene where it's like it gives the audience, because up until that point, the audience is probably like, "Fuck, man, this movie's crazy." Like emotionally and visually, it's upsetting. And then you have this moment of levity, but then it just turns back to dour because the guy just starts crying and shit. He starts freaking. He's done. That's probably his breaking moment in the jungle was that damn tiger. But Apocalypse Now, that's it.
See, that's what I like about solid war films too, is that, and that's where this one kind of tapered off more to the horror genre of like, let's create that comedic relief with some of the characters. But like that's a beautiful way of how they did it in Apocalypse Now, especially like that, and with Robert Duvall's character. You know, there's just certain characters that stand out that kind of created that relief without being comic relief.
Yeah. Damn, Robert Duvall's crazy too. I just want my surfboard back. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, no, Apocalypse Now, you could do a whole podcast on Apocalypse Now. That even goes above, I always, Apocalypse Now is the Blade Runner of war movies. Yeah. That's how I was just like, that's just such a metaphysical and just, every time you watch it, you're going to discover something new. And I haven't watched that movie in years. Like, I've been meaning, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to revisit that one soon.
It's Coppola, right?
Coppola, yeah.
That's one of his, that and The Godfather.
Godfather and that. And
those are his masterpieces.
Masterpieces, yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I guess I'll say that, too. I'm glad that, because, I do like the war genre. And for this being a genre mashup, it doesn't detract from the fact that it is an intense war film. The only thing that's detracting is when it shifts gears and you go into that, the horror realm, and that's why you're right. That's why that humor is there, because even though it would probably be cool to see this movie like just straight on, just dark and intense. And
I was kind of hoping it'd go that way.
It does.
I understand why they did that.
Yeah. But it ends with a Nas hip hop song at the end of it, so it's like it wants to have its heart in the right place. I guess you be entertaining. It's fun. It turns into a fun film, but that opening act is fucking visceral World War II. Like, okay, we're in for a ride, and Overlord's actually a solid ride. I would recommend it. It was on my top 10 horror films of last year. Not on my top 10 films in general, but it was on my top 10 horror.
What are the 3 you would recommend to me off the top of your head that I should watch? And you already mentioned you just mentioned one to me already.
Talking about horror films?
Yeah.
You definitely need to finish Mandy.
Mandy, yeah.
I mean, if there's one film that I think you would dig more than the rest, is Mandy. But that's a cool movie too, where I almost wanted to do a double feature tonight, because this is the type of movie where it does have its World War II groove, and then it does shift gears, and you feel it when it does into the horror film realm. And Mandy, I've talked with multiple people where this happens, and not in your case. I think it was late when we put it on that first time. It was already like 10 p.m. or what have you.
It was probably midnight.
Or midnight, yeah. It was a really late night. So, but everyone I've talked to, either they saw it and loved it right away because they sat through the whole thing, or they fell asleep in the first half.
Yeah.
I found out a lot of people, and I'm like, what scene did you get to? And what's funny, it's always the same scene that they got to. I'm like, whew, I get it. The first 30 or 40 minutes, even though it has like crazy sick imagery, it is slowly paced. Mm-hmm. There's a vibe to it. The vibe's there for a reason.
Yeah. Because
right after those scenes that they fell asleep on, it shifts gears drastically and turns into this full-on assault, like Texas Chainsaw level type horror film.
Well, the thing is, like, and that was it too. Like, I fell asleep at that point, but it's like I was upset at myself in the morning for falling asleep because I was into it. I was totally into it. I knew it was about to get vicious, and it's like, fell asleep.
And that one's on my top 10 of last year. For that movie, across the board. That movie made me think of a lot of movies. I did think about Apocalypse Now on that one too. The movie is just such a metaphysical. I don't even think you can pigeonhole in how you describe the film. It's just visceral. You know, you watch it and you're like, there's a lot going on with this imagery. There's a lot going on with this story. Nicolas Cage gives a great performance in it. You know, it fires on all cylinders. So Mandy, for sure. And then, Upgrade. You need to watch Upgrade. What I like about Mandy and Upgrade, 2 that I can recommend so far, and I do actually have a third one, is that they're entertaining. They got that entertainment value, but they're deep as hell. Like with Mandy, purely that's on a spiritual level to me. That's where I'm like, there's a lot of energies in Mandy, and maybe that's what it's like to be a human. I don't know. You know, but there's a lot going on in Mandy, where I feel like maybe it's the landscape of someone's mind. I don't know. But then with Upgrade, I was like, this is one of the more doper sci-fi films I've seen, because I like science fiction films. Is not like, to me, like it's supposed to be an action ride. Transformers is not science fiction to me. Science fiction to me is like Blade Runner or THX 1138 from George Lucas, or even RoboCop. You know, because these are movies that present a very real setting that mirrors how maybe our politics, our earth conservation, how all those things might play out. In a negative light, usually. It's always pessimistic. But Upgrade is cool. It has a good balancing act of being pessimistic but also optimistic. Upgrade is just cool. Yeah. It just feels very real. And I love how the ending plays out. Because I'm slowly not becoming... I can appreciate a happy ending, but like, I just want a real ending. And so movies like Mandy, Upgrade have a real ending.
And I think that's a huge difference between us, like people, cinephiles, who can really appreciate films for the art of it, and then the people who just watch movies to be entertained and want that happy ending. Because they're the ones who, by and large, buy the movie tickets.
They're the market.
The market,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the third one.
And the third one, man, there's a few I want. But just for a purely visual, did you ever see Revenge?
Revenge, I don't think so.
So that one's a cool one. It's a Canadian film, French film or Canadian, I forget. obviously a revenge film. And I'm not a fan, first off, I'm not a fan of when women get raped in film. I don't like it. That's where I'll say it's like, that's super, like, exploitation type subject matter that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I say I don't like how it's ever been represented in film. But this movie, and I'll just say because I never liked how it was represented because it's usually shot by men.
Yeah.
This one was done by a female filmmaker.
Interesting.
Handling the subject matter of a film, because there's a lot of films in cinematic history that deal with revenge, the female revenge-driven film, and the sexploitation one where a woman gets raped. There's a lot of that in cinematic culture, a lot of it from male directors. If it was a male director who did this one off the gates, if I knew that, I wouldn't have really shown that much interest to watch it. But when I heard it was a female filmmaker, I was like, I need to watch that and see what her take is on it, because I know that's not a huge thing that female filmmakers do.
Mm-hmm.
And without spoiling anything, I thought she killed it. Just, she has a visual eye, and it's her first film. Visual eye is great. The movie is beautiful. Love the cinematography. Love how the colors pop. Love the score.
What was it?
Corley. It's definitely a foreign sounding name that I'm gonna kill if I try to say. And the basic premise is, you know, this dumb socialite girl who wants, you know, probably one of those girls who takes selfies all the time on Instagram or whatnot, but has money. She goes to this exotic location in the desert with her rich boyfriend. She's a mistress. She's not even dude's married or whatnot, so he's already kind of a scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
But he takes her out there. Some other friends come, meet up with them, and one of the friends rapes her. And they try to leave her for dead because they don't want her calling the cops or anything like that. The dude gets worried about his wife finding out that she's cheating on her. They try to kill her. They fail miserably, and she comes back hunting for them. And that's where that's like the first chunk of the film, first the opening act, and then from there, that's why the movie's called Revenge. But it's dope to see how it all progresses, especially knowing that this is a woman filmmaker who's saying, I'm going to do a revenge film based off the fact my main character gets raped by a man. It just, I thought it was very cool. I thought it was a really well done film and a fresh perspective. Nothing felt exploitive, which is what I loved about it. Like, she shot all the scenes just with just a great eye, you know, where it didn't feel exploitive. That's what I always get sick of. Like, I hate movies. Like, well, I don't like those ones. They did a remake of this one called I Spit on Your Grave. And there's 3 of them in each film. There's always a girl who gets destroyed by men, whether it's raped or beaten or whatever. It's always kind of exploitive because they shoot her all sexy and whatnot in scenes, and I don't like that. That's when it becomes exploitive. It's like, I don't like the balance of these scenes. It's a different take in this one, which is what I liked. Really liked it. And those were all my top 10s. Those were all my top 10s last year. And those are some of the movies of why I say we are going into a golden era, a nice golden age of horror, because horror has its ups and downs. Some years you get good shit. And most other years, it's like, I'm starting to lose my feel for horror. Mm-hmm. It was tough when it was at the PG-13 age. No. And you had a few good ones, like The Ring, great film, but then you have, like, The Grudge, and you have Dark Water, Pulse. You're like,
there's still a bunch of those coming out.
They still come out, but there's lately, I've been enjoying, like, even Happy Death Day. Happy Death Day is...
I haven't seen that one.
I wouldn't recommend it, because I'm curious what you would think of it, though, because it goes against expectations. That's all I'll say about it. Whatever I stayed away from Happy Death Day when it first came out because it looked like another generic slasher to me. Didn't revisit it till maybe a year later, or watch it till a year later. I watched it on Blu-ray. Picked it up, and I was like, I'm going to watch it. Fucking loved it. I was like, I did not expect it to play out this way at all. And I dug the sequel that just came out last week because it goes against it again. It totally, like, you always hear from horror sequels, it's just more of the same shit, right? And this just says, we're not gonna give you more of the same shit. We just threw the whole story into a weird 180, you know, and that's what I loved about it. So even with that gave me hope. Watching Happy Death Day PG-13, and I was like, okay, let's see how the sequel is. And I dug the sequel, so I was like, okay, PG-13 horror might be getting interesting now. So I don't know. I like right now my recommendation to people is because I kind of seen how the trends have gone in the past few years or in the past couple of decades with horror movies. This is the time to watch horror movies because you got remakes that are making a comeback again. Remakes come and go. They start off strong, but then they peter off into shit. It started off strong last year with Halloween and Suspiria, so there still may be a few cool remakes that do their own thing with it. So studios are going to start getting money to start pumping out more horror films. You got original ideas that are going to start coming because you have Get Out, which Jordan Peele did, and hopefully with Us too, where it's like original concepts with something on their mind, intelligently done, that are making money. Okay, let's start greenlighting and start giving money into those scripts that are a little bit more deep thinking horror. So right now it's good. It may last a year and a half, or maybe it'll stay strong for a while. Who knows? But with horror, it has its ups and downs. Right now we're on the up. And it hasn't hit its peak yet. I know that. So I'm very curious to see how this here plays out. Especially with Jordan Peele. He's going to be producing, not directing, but he's going to produce the Candyman remake, which I'm like, bring Candyman back. Which is also what I'll recommend to you to watch on Shudder. I'll give you my login so you have to log into Shudder. It's a great fucking streaming service. They have put out the Horror Noir. It's a documentary about Black African American culture in horror cinema. And what's crazy, the biggest thing I got out of it is I was watching it and it was about Candyman because they have Jordan Peele in the documentary. I never thought of this perspective. I don't know if you did ever when you were watching it. He said, listen, man, I love Candyman. I love the story of it and whatnot. He's like, but in reality, even when they give the mythology of who Candyman is in the movie, you're telling me this dude is killing black people in a ghetto neighborhood when he could be killing the rich white people across the river over there who are the ones who killed him.
So that's going to be the Candyman.
They are going to switch it all around. And it was funny because I never thought of it that way. I was like, damn, that's right. Why? Because in the movie, he's slaughtering black people, taking their kids or whatnot. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense now that I think about it, because he was of the people. His story, like, he was of the people and he just got murdered by white people because he fell in love with a white woman. So I'm curious, and he brought up that perspective. I'm like, as soon as he said that, I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to see how you shepherd the Candyman remake. So right now, just if you have the Shudder streaming service, start watching stuff on there. Their original content's cool. Shudder's put out like 4 or 5 original films so far in the past few months that are solid. The rest of it's like a lot of just from every decade, from all over the world. They got foreign horror.
They had some really silly ones back in the day because they've been around
for a bit. They just grew into their own probably in the last year and a half.
I feel like some of the ones we got from Hollywood Video,
they got those on there.
Those were Shudder.
They got silly shit on there where it's like but now, like, I would totally just because now they're putting out like this documentary that was great. They had like just so many people on it, and then they just dropped Eli Roth's History of Horror, which they did in October on AMC. Every week there was a new episode about horror. And I think they did that for 6 or 7 episodes. They have all those episodes up on Shudder now, but they also they compiled all the interview stuff. Like, let's say he was talking to Rob Zombie. They compiled all the interview recordings into a podcast. Now you can listen to... Eli Roth didn't even know that. He posted today, he's like, man, that would have been cool if I knew that. He's like, I didn't realize you guys were going to save all the audio. And so it's like, that's such a wealth of knowledge. Yeah. From like, he has hella horror filmmakers on there. And even today's stuff, like Jordan Peele and whatnot, the guy who directed Upgrade, Lee Wano, I don't know how to say his name. But yeah, there's just... Right now, it's a good time to be a horror fan. I mean, just along with Overlord. Got a nice little budget, came out in theaters out of nowhere on November, and even though it didn't make anything, it's still a solid film, and one of those that will get rediscovered, streaming, home media, whatever. Hopefully kids will beg their parents to rent it one random night on a sleepover or something and say, let's watch Overlord. How else did anyone else discover this thing or whatnot when we were all kids? But yeah, Overlord. Another nice example of how the horror genre is staying strong at the moment and being innovative with their ideas. And
it's what's the next one you're excited for coming out?
I'm excited for Greta this week. I like Neil Jordan, and if you follow me on the Horse Train podcast or on the Instagram, the Horse Train, I'll be posting all about Neil Jordan and his horror films he's done. He's done 4. He did Interview with the Vampire. He did this one called Byzantium, which is another vampire film that came out a few years back. I caught Dad watching it one evening, and he actually liked it a lot. In Dreams, which is a totally underrated film that people seem to always forget about, with Annette Bening when Robert Downey Jr., where Robert Downey Jr. is kind of like this figment of her imagination. I don't want to ruin it for people, but like it's a cool... If you saw, like, Robert Downey Jr. has like gnarly long hair, and Annette Bening has her short Rosemary's Baby haircut. But that's a cool one. It's a good psychological thriller, In Dreams. And then he did a werewolf movie, which I'm a huge fan of werewolf films, and that's The Company of Wolves. And that's another one you should check out. I have that one. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like Neil Jordan's version of, like, Ridley Scott did Legend for his fantasy film, and Company of Wolves is like Neil Jordan's fantasy horror film, kind of like Legend. There's a lot of crazy ideas and great special effects and great set designs, and it's a really underrated, cool movie. But he's done 4 strong horror films in that realm, in that genre, and now he has a new one this week with Greta, and that's with Chloe Grace Moretz, and I always forget the other foreign actress, but his older lady's basically a psycho, and she walks around just trying to meet strangers, become friends with them, and then ultimately kill them. I don't know, but it looks really cool. But after that, it's Us. Mm-hmm. That comes out the end of this month. And then we go into April, we'll have Pet Sematary. There's a lot of horror movies coming out this year. So like right now, the next 3 is Greta, Us, and Pet Sematary, which I'm excited for all of them. They all look like really good productions. So yeah, horror is strong right now. So yeah, with that, I mean, any final thoughts? Anything you liked Overlord? You recommend it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're into the watching, I mean, it's very entertaining, so for entertainment value alone, you know, you want to watch a good, crazy movie that'll kind of get you wrapped in it immediately. You know, get your popcorn ready, enjoy the ride, because it gets crazy. But yeah, I mean, anyone who's listening to this loves horror films, so I think you'll enjoy the horror aspect of it, and you know.
This one's definitely for the horror fans. So, alright, that's been episode 7 with Arsenio. Check out his Sessions podcast as well as his Instagram, Abaka Art. And hopefully we'll have them on again. I actually want to get a big crew for, well, I don't know if that's the end of this month. But hopefully you, if anything, you know, because we got Casey on an episode by just doing the Skype.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so what we could do is... Because I want to get everyone's opinion on Us. That's one where I want like multiple viewpoints on that. So even if we just get you on a Skype, if you see it that week and whatnot, get you on a Skype and get you recorded on the podcast. I definitely want a bunch of people on that one. But the next, for sure, podcast will actually be Greta this week. I'll see that this weekend. And I'm not sure who the guest will be just yet. Maybe it'll just be me. I don't know. But yeah. This is the Horse Train Podcast. This is episode 7, where we talked about Jules Avery, JJ Abrams, and Bad Robot's production of Overlord. We'll see you guys next time.